Under the Veil of Night by Nate. Cattle die, kinsmen die, and so one dies oneself. One thing I know that never dies, the fame of a dead man's deeds. The Havamal. And there were King Harold of Norway and Earl Tostig slain, and numberless people about them, both Northmen and English. And the Northmen fled from the English. Then was there but one of the Norwegians who withstood the English folk, so that they could not pass over the bridge or gain victory. The Anglo-Saxon Chronicle. The noonday sun was well hid behind a veil of thunderheads that sent loud rolling peals echoing through the valley. In between thunderclaps, the cold northern rain poured down in sheets, swelling the mountain stream to a raging torrent and washing the blood and detritus from the bridge that spanned it. Booted feet kicked broken and dismembered human forms into the brown churning water, and grim blue eyes watched them being bashed and sundered against the rocks downstream. The driven rain, the rolling thunder, the churning river, and the howling wind sounding through the valley muffled, but could not silence, the bestial moans wafting up the worn track on the far side of the river. A lone figure shuffled out of the dense pine woods, obscured by a haze of mountain fog and summer rain. It was dressed in bloodied and soiled buckskins, and it approached the bridge with a painful, shambling gait. When it started to traverse the span of the bridge, a man approached from the other side. This man was tall and broad, dressed all in animal skins, with a sword strapped to his waist and a big round shield hanging from his left arm. He raised his shield and with a loud cry smote the creature into the river, to be swept away by the current and broken on the rocks. Wiping the rain out of his eyes, he walked back across the bridge to rejoin his fellows. There were 8 others like him, all tall and broad, dressed in skins, with grim blue eyes and wild shocks of red or blonde hair. They each had a sword and a shield, save for one who carried a big 2-handed war axe. The axeman nursed a wound on his forearm while he futilely tried to tune a rain-ruined harp. With a cry of frustration, he pitched the harp into the flood and barked at the returning man. "Wolfstan, you have the sharpest ears. When the wind blows our way again, I want you to tell us how many are coming." The howling wind changed direction, blowing toward them from the other side of the river, and carried on it were numerous of those maddening, unearthly moans. Wolfstan cupped a hand to his ear and reported, "I cannot say for sure, but it must be at least 10 dozen, very likely several more, and they're close." The bard looked back away from the river toward the mountains on the far side of the valley, their forested peaks shrouded in mist. He said, "Hilda and the others should be over the ridge by now. Do you think we would be able to hold until nightfall?" Wolfstan scoffed. "You insult us, Cadman. I could hold this bridge to nightfall by myself." The bard, Cadman, grimaced and said, "I feel the poison coursing through me. You men may fight on, but I will be drinking with our fathers before the sun rises again." The 9 of them sat in a circle on the muddy track, sharpening their swords and waiting for the enemy, as the moans grew steadily louder. A figure much like the first shambled out of the forest and approached the bridge. It had mottled gray skin and torn clothes, and was missing an arm. Congealed black blood oozed out of the stump. Another figure emerged, followed by another, and yet more, until the track on the far side of the river was thick with them. They opened their mouths and filled the air with their moans. As they piled onto the narrow bridge, their number was so great that many were forced to wade into the churning stream, where they were caught by the current and smashed against the rocks. The fighters rose up fearlessly to face their adversaries, their eyes grim with a cold and unfeeling fatalism. As the beasts shuffled closer, the stench of their rotten breath filling the air, Cadman hefted his big Dane axe and chanted, "The sluggard believes he shall live forever, if the fight he faces not. But age will not grant him a gift of peace, though the spears may spare his life." He gave the axe a practiced swing and barked, "Get to it! Time now to separate the dogs from the men." The bridge was narrow. Only 3 men could stand abreast on it, and one of the fighters howled with blind battle fury and jumped onto its span, driving his big rotund shield into the beast's with the full weight of his body behind it. He swung his sword and smote one across the throat, very nearly severing its head. With shield and sword he tore into them, but still they kept coming, biting and scratching, seemingly oblivious to the damage he was dealing. Wulfstan brushed strings of rain-soaked blonde hair out of his eyes and said, "Cadman, tell me, how did it come to this?" The rain pounded the slat roof of the mead hall, and a howling wind, powerful enough to uproot trees, battered at its stout log walls. But the air inside was warm and dry. Even the howling wind and the rolling thunder were muffled, drowned out by the sounds of feasting and merrymaking. Men, women, and children drank deeply from horns of beer, feasted on joints of beef, laughed, talked, boasted, and listened eagerly to Cadman's tales. "Loudly spoke Thrym, the giant king," the bard chanted as he strummed his harp. "Bring forth the hammer to bless my bride. Yet let Mjolnir lie upon her knees, that its strength may bless our vows." The men and women and children chuckled in anticipation. This was an old tale and a favorite, and one they all knew well. The fighter's heart laughed in his breast when hard-souled Thor beheld his hammer. Grim Thrym he dropped first, the giant king, and then all the folk of the giants. The crowd were applauding him now. Cadman paused to take a draught of beer from a proffered horn and resumed chanting. He'd reached the end of the story. "The giant's old sister then he dropped, she who'd begged for bridal gifts. A knock on the head in the shilling's stead, and hammer blows for rings. And so did Odin's son get his hammer back." The crowd applauded and laughed. Cadman smiled. "Any others you'd like to hear?" he asked. "Tell it again," demanded one of the children. "Tell it again about Thor killing all the giants. It's my very favorite." "I like the part where Thor puts on a dress," said a little girl. A man, wizened, grayed, and bent, but still as strong as a bear, stepped up and said, "It is a good tale, to be sure. This is not the night for tales of laughter. Sing us a song that befits the weather. Tell them of Grendel, Cadman." "A good idea," Cadman answered. He fiddled with the tuning pegs on his harp until he found a sound he liked, strummed a few chords, and chanted, "A powerful monster living deep in the dark growled in impatient pain as music rang day after day loud in the mead hall. The harp's call and the poet's songs, sung of ancient heroes to us all and of the gods shaping the earth, unfolded over the haunted moors where the monster stirred. The fiend, the demon Grendel, who was spawned in the slime from a pair of monsters born of Cain, banished by God, punished forever. When darkness had dropped, the demon Grendel went up when night fell, up from the swamps to the mead hall, to slip through the door, steal sleeping men from their beds to devour them, drink their dripping blood, and off again to his lair beneath the swamp. With hands forged in hell, I hear something," Wulfstan interrupted. The old man laughed. "Seems Cadman's tales have got to our young friend's head, and he thinks he hears old Grendel sneaking up to the hall door." Wulfstan glared at him, and above the mocking laughter quipped, "Do not make sport of me, Theodric. I might wish I heard Grendel, the sound out there is so chilling. Listen." Theodric cupped a hand to his ear and said, "That is just the wind, Wulfstan, and the rain. Do not let the old tales go to your head so." "By the gods, that is not wind, if wind I ever heard. I say we go outside and we have a look around." "Into the storm? If it will put your mind at ease, I suppose we can. I tell you it's only the wind." It took 4 men to push open the big oak doors upon which the wind was battering, and the men had to keep their shields held close to their chests to keep from being blown backward. Thunderheads hid the moon and stars, and rain and fog obscured the distant woods. "See, Wulfstan," Theodric shouted over the wind and rain. "There is nothing out here but the weather." A thunderbolt smote the peak of a nearby mountain, bathing all the valley in pale, flickering witchlight for the briefest of moments. Through the haze of fog and rain, they could see the outlines of human figures, hundreds, edging closer.